as being involved in child molestation and underage sex. Now,
did I tell you that the first time I met Michael Moore at a fundraiser, Rolf Harris was the prize in the fundraising raffle? A good night out with Rolf Harris.
Oh yeah.
And I know the woman that won the prize. I've never seen anyone so excited about having a good night out with anyone as that lady.
Plenty of lubricant with you.
But did I tell you also that Dave Lee Travis, who, I believe that these are just plants and diversionary systems, because the whole of the Coronation Street cast has been persecuted and let off in the law courts. And you saw that Rebekah Brooks was let off in the law courts, and you know her Malaria No More crimes,
that's right.
all her directorships, all of the things that she's doing in league with the Prime Minister in the chipping Norton Set.
Yeah.
She is not an innocent person, but I believe that Rolf Harris and Dave Lee Travis likely are. And that guy who used to do, what's the thing that we used to have, like a sporting tournament on a Friday night? The man that used to commentate on that was convicted or was on paedophilia charges as well. I forget his name.
So where are all the politicians that are in that paedophile ring?
Well, you see, everything's retrospective. They only turn the attention on Cyril Smith once he's dead.
Listen, why haven't they? Because I've made application to every single political party to get Andrea Davison back from Venezuela, where she could give state evidence in court about what she knows about the paedophile rings, because she knows a lot, trust me.
Yeah.
She's not just bullshitting, she knows a lot. That's why they let her get out of the country. Now, when we talk about David Cameron, where he says that nobody is above the law, he assisted as the Prime Minister of this country in one of the biggest financial frauds and deceit with money laundering with Cairn Energy and Vedanta. Do you understand?
I'm glad you didn't say the Carroll Foundation, because what you're talking about with Vedanta and Cairn is $1 trillion fraud. The imposition of one of their CEOs on the court of the Bank of England. Now that is a massive democratic abuse.
Now he, using his position as the Prime Minister, interfered in 2 public listed companies, and he pressurized the Indian government to accept the conditions of their offers. Now that is an illegal operation of incitement to use his power as Prime Minister for 2 public listed companies. Now it just so happens that Sir William Benjamin Bowring Gamble is a mate of Tony Blair's and George Bush. Now that in itself should have risen alarm bells in anybody, and yet David Cameron did, because somebody's got his fingers up his backside, opening and closing that man's mouth, and that can only come from either the Rothschilds or JP Morgan or the Oppenheimers. They are the people who manipulate and groom people to become Prime Minister, and the dog's bodies that fall under him.
Well, yeah, I mean, what interests me is the geopolitical manipulation and the hypocrisy. When I learned that Henry Kissinger was a director of the Future of Russia Foundation, I could not sleep for a week. Yeah, I mean, that is shocking. That's the world's biggest killer that's in charge of Mossad for decades. Is a Peace Prize winner, a Nobel laureate, and the man is just a mass murderer.
Well, why do you think I keep focusing my attention on 788 790 Finchley Road?
Oh, is Kissinger linked in there too?
Because it's run by Mossad.
Okay, yeah.
It's run by Mossad, and that's why it's in Finchley Road, which is part of the Jewish Empire in this country. They are the people who manipulate, and I don't give a shit who's listening, They're the people...
Well, I'm taping again, because this is getting quite topical.
Well, they're the people who groom the politicians. They're the people that bung money to their political party. And once they bung the money, they are blackmailed. And they know it. Just like Andrea Davison knew. That's why they allowed her to skip the country. Because she could have brought more crap to whichever, Tony Blair, Neil Kinnock, Peter Hain, David Cameron, Ed Miliband, all of them. They all want her silenced wherever she is, but she is still working for the same organised crime network as she was working for in the United Kingdom. Anyway, I've got to go, George.
Okay, thanks for your help. And maybe we could have a session on Kissinger, Murdoch, the B-Sky B networks and the Prince's Trust and the links to Christopher Chambers. We've talked about that at length in the written articles on the website, but you've not done your angry disclosures on that cabal right at the top of society. I mean, what Prince Charles gets away with is shocking.
Well, look, you're entering into the realms of royalty, which I believe at the moment is untouchable. Because you have such a following in this country for the royalty.
They're in you've seen the king in 2 countries abdicate in the last 6 months because they know that honest men are on the cause. You saw King Juan Carlos, who's just as corrupted as Clinton on a different continent. He stepped down. Physically, God is dismembering him. He's walking with 2 sticks. Just a year ago he was pictured with that broad grin on his face as he shoots the buffaloes in the wildlife reserves that they abuse all the time. That man killed his own brother when his brother was 11. Well, did you know that?
Well, you're saying something without...
It's in the newspapers. It was all over the newspapers in that era.
Well, if it's been printed, they always tell you, don't believe everything that you read. Isn't that true?
You don't believe the news about the monarchy in Spain where there was an accidental shooting of the royal prince that was the next in line for the throne and was overtaken by the person that accidentally shot him, Prince Juan Carlos.
Yeah.
It's a fact. It's published even in the Spanish newspapers.
Well, listen to me, George. What I understand is that Princess Diana was very special to me as an individual because that woman, when she was coming up in the cortege of cars from RAF Brodie, I was the only person in a lay-by. I'd just done the DI on the airfield. The
Brodie's in South Africa?
No, Pembrokeshire.
All right.
RAF Brodie is in Pembrokeshire. They don't have any RAF bases in South Africa, you twonk.
Okay, sorry, I'm just an innocent professor.
So, in 1981, when I was at RAF Brodie, we had a royal visit, and Prince Charles and Diana came into our crew room, into the NCO's mess, and they then went on to St David's. Now, after I DI'd the airfield, that meant that I did the DI for the Mark V arrestor barriers, each end of the runway, and the rotary hydraulic arresting gear, the same sort of cable as they have on a carrier for catching aircraft. I then knocked off a bit early and I parked my car, my Volvo, in a lay-by off Newgale Beach, and I watched the cortege of cars coming up from Brodie up the main road, and I stood with my camera with a telephoto lens, and I took about 15 shots as they got closer and closer, and then as the car got broadside to me, I dropped my camera, saluted the car, and Diana blew me a kiss. I was the only one there. Do you understand?
Yeah, well, if you believe Greg Hallett, and I believe him because he was a Skype communicant of mine, that King Juan Carlos was given the rights of prima nocte with Princess Diana in her marriage to Prince Charles. Princess Diana knew all about Simon Day, Camilla's first...
I believe that link to 22 Arlington Street is one of the reasons why they did her, because of the landmines and the munitions being sold by Ambassador Francis D. Cook's company.
Yeah, so she's a good person in the midst of that criminal cabal, and almost inevitably she has to be taken out, like King Juan Carlos's brother. But that was because of his legitimacy and his access to the throne in front of...
But now you're going on to the conspiracy theory, which, as I said, once you start to be labelled as a conspiracy theorist, unless you can back it up with any evidence...
Well, Greg Hallett took a law court case to the British monarchy through Prime Minister Cameron. It's all published in many international texts. The video footage of him posting the lawsuit into the back building behind the Houses of Parliament to get the case heard is uncontested. They changed the laws of succession within 3 months of that occurring, and then they had the incidents that occurred in the marital, when the prince was born, when Prince George was born, and they had all the shenanigans around the suiciding of the nurse. All of that was documented, and that was the time when Greg Hallett was taking his lawsuit against the legitimacy of the monarchy to the law courts. He has been killed by the Crown Templar.
Well, let me tell you, George. Arlington Associates Limited Ltd, with Ambassador Francis D. Cook, Geoffrey White, Brigadier Aldwyn James Glendining White, and Mark Blackborough. That company was launched out of the address in Hereford where 22 SAS had their main station. And the reason was that Arlington 22, which was Arlington Associates Limited previous name, if you check the companies and the directors operating out of the Hereford address, you will understand a little bit more, but I can't tell you that because that's part of my ace cards. And now, if that was...
But can we agree to talk about Christopher Chambers and the Lonro networks, the B-Sky B networks, and the people that are at the top of that Prime Minister's food chain and in the chipping Norton... No, but as an impending commitment...
Yes,
you know,
I'll give you that.
When I get my IT together.
Okay.
Thank you. Cheers for now.
I'm going.
Good luck with the carpets.
Yeah, thanks, Zane.